Hey everybody, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. Now, I know this is going to come as a complete shock, but I'm not exactly the kind of guy that you would see at a festival like Coachella. But, so I don't really pay too much attention to it, but this year I couldn't help but hear a couple of headlines and hear a couple of stories from this year's event. One of them was about Grimes having all these technical difficulties to the point where she was literally like screaming into the microphone out of frustration. The second thing was that somebody apparently smashed a guitar during their set, and it caused a big uproar. I guess there was a lot of people that just felt offended by it for some reason, and I thought, 2024 and somebody's offended? No way. But it just kind of made me laugh because I thought about how different things are these days compared to decades ago when you would see or hear about somebody smashing a guitar. So I thought I would make a video about it and take a look back at the history of what I remember guitar smashing being all about, and see what your opinions are on it as well. If you're older, you may remember always seeing that iconic cover from The Clash for London Calling, where the bass player is actually smashing his bass on stage and they catch it mid-smash. It's one of the most iconic photos of all time, I would say. That image got seared into my brain at a very young age. And then I eventually got into the band Kiss. And it was rare that we got to see footage of them actually playing. This is way before the internet or YouTube. So I was able to catch a little bit of footage of them playing one time, and I saw Paul Stanley smashing his guitar over and over again. So in my young brain, I just put those two things together. I thought, okay, rock stars just smash their instruments. That's just how it is. Well, because my cousin and I were so into Kiss all of a sudden, our grandma decided to buy all of us instruments so that we could put a band together to have something to do during the summer. So she brought over a drum set, a bunch of guitars. I think she got all the stuff at garage sales. She was really good with garage sales. So all us kids got together and tried to form a band in the garage. And we didn't have a bass guitar, but my sister wanted to be in the band, and we thought we'll just make her the bass player. So we just gave her an electric guitar, and we didn't plug her in because we told her you don't hear the bass guitar in music anyway. That's just how we thought back then. Well, one of the guitars that my grandma brought over was just beat to hell. It was on its last legs, and she told me that she was going to throw it out if we didn't end up using it for something. And so a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, this is my chance to be Paul Stanley. Now, I didn't want to smash it in front of everybody because I thought my cousin would go and tell my grandma, and then she would never give us anything ever again. So I waited till everybody left, and it was going to be my big moment. So I took the guitar, held it over my head, and smashed it into the cement garage floor. Now, I thought that it was going to explode into a million pieces and make this really epic sound like it did when Paul Stanley smashed his guitar. But instead, it vibrated so hard when it made contact that it felt like I was getting electrocuted, and I immediately threw it to the ground. I couldn't believe how painful that was, to feel that jolt of electricity as it hit the ground. And so I just kind of brushed it off. I was like, you know what? I'm going to still do this. So I picked it up and I kept trying, that youthful ignorance. And it hurt me again and again, and finally by about the fourth time, the guitar started to give way a little bit. So by the fifth time I really smashed it to the ground, the neck split in half vertically, and it ended up cutting my hand. So I looked down, my hands are in total agony and now bleeding, and I just gave up. I'm like, you know what? I guess I'm just no rock star. So the years go by, and I eventually learn how to actually play the guitar. And then YouTube comes around, and I'm finally able to see all the footage of the rock stars from the past, smashing their instruments. And it was really crazy because it was the first time I saw the Pete Townsend incident with The Who, where he smashes his guitar, and then like a bomb goes off in Keith Moon's drum set, which, by the way, made Pete Townsend half deaf, I believe, ever since. So intense. And then after all that, Pete goes up to the host, and he takes the host's guitar off of him and smashes it. And you would think it would be this big rock star moment, but the crowd was stunned into silence, and it just felt awkward more than anything. But back then, it was just a different time, and things were just wild. I also got to see footage of Richie Blackmore and Kirk Hammett smashing the guitars. Kirk actually took like a hammer and started smashing it on stage. It was wild. And, even guys like Yngwie Malmsteen and, of course, Kurt Cobain, it was really interesting to see them going crazy, too, on stage. Then there seemed to be this huge gap in guitar smashing incidents. You know, you'd hear once in a while about guys like Matt Bellamy doing it, and you know, of course, Green Day were known for doing it as well. When Green Day does it, though, it was kind of weird because it seemed like Billy Joe would start smashing, and then Mike would also join along on his bass. And there's something weird about two people in the same band smashing their instruments at the same time. What really freaked me out, though, is when Billy Joe smashes his guitar, it's broken in half, and sometimes the neck is cracked in a way that makes it look more like it's sheared off like a spear, and then he throws it into the audience. And I thought, man, he's so lucky he never put out somebody's eye or worse. You know, it's like when a baseball player hits a ball and the bat breaks in half and flies into the crowd. I always hold my breath because that thing is basically a flying spear. And then a lot more time goes by, and then I heard about Mike McCready from Pearl Jam smashing his. So I look it up, and it's kind of strange now because, you know, they're all millionaires now. So to see a millionaire smashing his guitar doesn't have the same impact to me as if, let's say, some struggling artist who's living off ramen and drinking water just goes crazy on stage and just feels the spirit and goes crazy. That, to me, is a lot more respectable. When a guy like that smashes one of his guitars, it's almost like Steve from Stranger Things plucking out one hair. It's just not that much of a sacrifice. So I was a bit intrigued when I heard the backlash for this most recent guitar smashing from a guy, I guess, named A.P. Dillon. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I looked up the footage, and at first, you know, he was playing the guitar, and I kind of scanned through the concert, and you could tell that he's not really a guitar player. You know, that's not really his main instrument. You could also tell by the way he holds it and strums. He kind of strums like this, and he had a capo. And so it really seemed like he was doing the very bare minimum when it came to playing the instrument. But, you know, I'm not really sure of his skill level, but I'm just guessing. I could be wrong. Anyway, he unplugs it, and then proceeds to smash it, and it looked like a really cool guitar, so that was kind of, you know, painful to see. But the backlash was mainly that he was being disrespectful. Some people were saying to his heritage or to his ethnicity or something. And then other people were saying that, you know, it was a waste of a good musical instrument. He should have donated it to somebody or whatever. So those were the main grievances. I think the only problem I had was that, once again, it felt very scripted, almost like, you know, they wrote it out. Okay, here's where I'm going to unplug the guitar. Here's where I'm going to smash it. And it's all part of their choreography. You know, I'm not offended at all by it. It's really hard to offend me. But I just thought it was a little bit lame, you know. So that was my overall take on it. This made me wonder if there was ever a situation where I would smash a guitar these days. I point to this guitar and I would never smash this thing. But if I was in a situation where I had one that was maybe on its last legs, where repairing it was going to cost more than the actual guitar was worth, and if we were playing maybe outdoors on cement or tar, I know too many people on the production side of things, so if I were to suddenly start smashing my instrument on a drum riser or something, I would feel kind of bad that I was wrecking their property. I know I'm getting old and lame. And the third thing that I would do for sure is I would use the guitar smash trick. Somebody taught this to me one time, and he said all you have to do is take the back of the guitar, where this one doesn't have one, but it would have a neck joint, and loosen the screws a little bit so that when you go smash it, it'll break right away and you won't have that electrocution feeling that I had when I was a kid. And that made sense to me because I remember seeing footage, more modern footage, of Paul Stanley smashing his guitar. And first of all, it's funny because he swaps out guitars before he does it. So he gives his roadie or whatever his good guitar. He takes the cheaper guitar, which has already been, you know, modified a little bit, and he breaks it. It breaks almost right away, right at the neck joint. So that tells me that he's doing that trick. Compare that with the old Paul Stanley, and you can really see a big difference. And I have to admit that even if all the conditions were right, I would still hesitate to smash my instrument. I think it's because it's my whole livelihood. I've grown to love this instrument so much that even if it was a cheap guitar, I would have a hard time driving it into the ground. And I guess that's why a lot of people might say, well, Mike, that's why you're never going to get into Valhalla. I have like no comeback for that. Okay, so in the comments section, let me know what your opinions are on the act of guitar smashing, and especially if you've done it before. I want to know what your experience was. I'd be very interested to see if it was a lot like mine. And thank you so much for watching. You know what? Screw it. Just kidding. See you later.